and it's tight. Cermak at the bottleneck at the circle there, 16 minutes 95th to downtown. I-57 and 127th, an earlier crash is gone. It's 16 minutes from I-80 to the merge. There is road construction affecting westbound 88, the Reagan Tollway from 59 to the Aurora Toll in the left lane. You see delays on I-80 westbound Richards to the Des Plaines River Bridge. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our 1 hour heating and air conditioning weather center, we're seeing sunshine today, mixing with some clouds, high 59. Currently 47. Next news coming up at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We've been soliciting walk a mile in my shoes stories all morning to put human beings in front of the statistics when it comes to the impact of the choices we're making in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. This one from Michigan. I know you asked for stories of businesses impact in Illinois and Wisconsin. I should have mentioned Michigan, too, another shutdown state. But we are in Michigan and are impacted by the lockdown in all three states. We own the Painted Turtle Inn bed and breakfast in St. Joseph, Michigan, so we draw guests from not only Michigan, but Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Wisconsin. We started out the year in great shape. On March 1, we were up 50% in bookings from last year. Now, after 2 months of lockdown, we're down 38% from last year. So basically, we not only lost everything we were up from last year, but we went down another 38%. We began the year looking forward to possibly the best year ever. Now bankruptcy is a serious discussion. We could easily open safely and follow more than the recommended protocols, but our livelihood is currently not deemed essential to the governor. Very depressing. Very depressing. And I said this from the outset about trade-offs and lives versus lives. It's always been the issue. There's no choice to be made that doesn't put people at risk. And those who are suggesting otherwise are sophists and cranks.
Every time you leave your house, you take a risk.
This is, in this context specifically. And so the choices we made and the unintended, but nonetheless real consequences, some on the positive side, some on the not so positive side. For example, coming out of New York, the number of deaths in New York City from causes other than COVID-19 rose by more than 5,000 people above the seasonal norm during the first 2 months of the pandemic, according to the CDC. The deaths could be due to several factors, the CDC said, including delays in seeking or getting life-saving care for fear of exposure to the coronavirus, or because, quote-unquote, elective procedures that weren't really all that elective, somewhat time-sensitive, not immediate, but time-sensitive, did not get made, did not happen in time. And then, as we talked about, because we have a lot of research on this topic, because we know how economic ruin impacts people's mental health, and unfortunately, their behavioral choices like self-harm, either suicide or self-medication. We know we've been through recessions, the Great Recession of 2008. It's not that far in our past. We know how that sort of devastation can impact people. And there's a new study out by the Well-Being Trust and the Robert Graham Center for Policy Studies in Family Medicine and Primary Care that estimates as many as 75,000 more people will die from drug or alcohol misuse and suicide. 3 factors are at work exacerbating deaths of despair: unprecedented economic failure paired with massive unemployment, mandated social isolation for months, possible residual isolation for years, and uncertainty caused by the sudden emergence of a novel, previously unknown microbe. Benjamin F. Miller, Chief Strategy Officer for the Wellbeing Trust. Undeniably, policymakers must place a large focus on mitigating the effects of COVID. However, if the country continues to ignore the collateral damage, specifically our nation's mental health, we will not come out of this stronger. Those 75,000 lives matter just as much as the 75,000 lives that have been taken by the virus. Thus, the argument for a balanced approach, understanding risk is endemic to every choice available. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Dr. Gregory Jantz, licensed mental health counselor with a doctorate in counseling psychology, founder of the Center, A Place for Hope, and author of Healing Depression for Life. Gregory Jantz, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, good to be with you today. This is really an important topic. We're going to begin to see some things happen in people's lives, and addiction's just one of them.
Well, react to that study from the Wellbeing Trust.
Yeah, we're seeing it already. This is something that we're concerned about. The emotional saturation is the term I'm calling it, where we have had enough. We're on the edge of despair. It's a despair that says, I don't know if I can make it much longer. It's the despair that people's lives are on that edge of the anxiety is overwhelming and the depression. And when we get to that point, and we get to that point of total saturation, we start to make decisions out of desperation. And we're seeing more of that. We're seeing people who have had enough, and you're starting to see them revolt. And there's a revolt going on. And some are also then turning more inward, and the inward is the isolation. They continue it. They turn to addictive behaviors, and we will see, because we've started it now, an increase in suicide and an increase in addictions. That's already started.
Well, what can you do if you know somebody, and I'm sure we all do, who's in bed all day, just in the fetal position, so depressed, doesn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, then watches these daily briefings with our, governor and mayor, and they give them absolutely no hope, just give them doom and gloom to try to scare us, to control us, I think. But what could we do to help them?
One of the things is we're not meant to do this alone. And I'm so glad that you've asked that question, because we need each other right now. And one of the things is we got to be careful we're not oversaturating in the digital world. There's so much viral misinformation, and most of the information and most of the press conferences, not all of them, are geared really, and use the word control, because fear is a way of controlling. And so we stay afraid. So I'm going to say to the person that's in bed, you've got to reestablish some basic routine. And basic routine means I've got to drink my water. I've got to get up, get ready, do my basic hygiene. I've got to start reestablishing patterns or my daily rituals of self-care. If I don't do self-care, I'll become self-absorbed. And self-absorption means I'll probably do self-destructive behaviors.
What about these mantras and sort of the virtue shaming that comes with them, the hashtags and the, you're going to kill your grandma if you don't abide our strictures, and sort of not just fear, but sort of the anxiety and the guilt complexes that politicians attempt to impose on people?
Yeah, there's something called that I'm calling acute anticipatory anxiety. Acute anticipatory anxiety. It's saying if you don't do this, something bad's going to happen. And so that's also a way of modulating our behavior. And here's what I have to say about that. It's wrong.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
it's wrong.
That is succinct to the point. I appreciate straight talk. Well, because it's infantilizing, but it's worse than that, right? Because it's coming from somebody in a position of authority, and so you're sort of back on your heels. People like to think of themselves as good people. Well, gosh, if I don't do this, I'm a bad person, and if I don't do this, I could kill somebody, and I don't want to kill somebody. I don't want to be responsible for that, and you get all bound up.
Yeah, so we do the basic common sense precautions, and that's washing your hands. That's if you're in a group, covering your face. There's the things that we all know to do. Please do those basics. But we
Dan.
also know that we're going to empower one another towards life, not empower one another towards death.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's something too about this, and I wonder if this is part of the conversation you have with patients or those who come to you seeking counseling. And that's there's a difference between living a life and just existing in a strict biological sense, and that seems to be somewhat lost in this whole national dialogue that's been running for a couple of months now.
Yeah, it is lost. And, we work with folks from all over the country who come in for help for anxiety and depression. And I have to tell you, in your area, we're seeing quite a few that are coming our direction to get help. And it's increased. It's increasing during this. And I want to acknowledge there are folks out there who they know that I'm on the edge and I need help. And we don't want to have regret. And so often when we continue in this pattern of self-destruction, we're going to have later regret. So let's watch for that. And you know what? It's good and it's okay to ask for help. We all have a turn. And when you layer the chronic stress that people are under by all the financial stress that's on top of this, that's a formula for emotional disaster.
Yeah, doctor, I wanted to ask you about. I know we've talked about alcohol and drug abuse during this time, but what about eating disorders? I know our health department joked about putting on the COVID-19, but a lot of people are you seeing an increase in anorexics?
What we're seeing an increase more right now is what we call binge eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
The first book I wrote years ago was on eating disorders, and we're seeing a reemergence. And people are oftentimes just grazing. Let's say they're working at home or trying to work from home. So they're just grazing throughout the day with food. Food is the source. It's the drug of choice. So food is the way to make me feel differently temporary. And what happens is, over time, it's just like I develop a food addiction. We are seeing that. People are not doing a good job right now because they're emotionally saturated, just functioning. So I'm going to look for things that change my mood. Well, food is one of them that works pretty quick.
I wanted you to tackle the topic of stripping people of agency, which happens, generally speaking, it's more acute in these times, I would argue. And by that I mean, something, frankly, that longshoreman-turned philosopher Eric Hoffer argued in his treatise on mass movements, which is people won't change unless they think that they're in control of their lives and they can improve their lives for the better. If they don't believe those two dynamics are in play, then they will be content with the status quo. And that's bad enough in times where people at least still have the freedom of movement and other freedoms. In times where they don't have the enjoyments and, frankly, full complement of rights that they normally have, sort of settling with the status quo and believing you do not have dominion over your own life becomes actually dangerous to them.
Yes, and that's a very good point, because if I become powerless or have a sense that I'm powerless, then I become immobilized and fear is what's controlling my life. And so we know fear is the great paralyzer. It's how we control things. I'm in the Seattle area, so when this all broke out, everybody was afraid, and somebody decided to go buy toilet paper. And so now we created a toilet paper craze that originated here. Now, that said, we do things because we need a sense of control. And so this is why we're seeing individuals, and I'm using the word revolt, they're saying, you know what? This is no longer okay, and I'm standing up. And one by one, we're seeing businesses say, nope, no more, no more. And people are standing up because there reaches a point that says, you know what? I value my freedom, and I'm willing now to stand up.
First grunge rock, and now the toilet paper mania. I mean, hasn't Seattle done enough? Hasn't Seattle hurt us enough, Dr. Jantz?
I'm so sorry about that toilet paper. Yes.
Well, how is Seattle doing? How's the state of Washington?
Well, I'm in a beautiful suburb north of Seattle where our facility is, and we're on the waterfront. And honestly, for us,
nice.
Yes, there's a lot of precautions, but we're in a beautiful spot, and things are pretty well for us. I think Washington's starting to. There's a sense of forward movement, and I'm telling people it's time we do forward facing. We've got to look to the future and begin to recreate a different future.
He is Dr. Gregory Jantz, licensed mental health counselor with a doctorate in counseling psychology, founder of The Center, a place for hope outside of Seattle, as he was just describing, and author of Healing Depression for Life. Gregory Jantz, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good to be with you today. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
As time goes by, we can all use a little more help getting around. Staying mobile and independent can be tough for some, especially during today's challenging times, and especially for our aging loved ones. When you need assistance finding the right quality products to make life more enjoyable, there's Mars Medical Supply in New Lenox. They're here for you now and open for business and making home deliveries during the quarantine. Get into the sunshine this spring with a brand new Pride Mobility scooter or Easy Light Cruiser folding lightweight power wheelchair. Pricing on new scooters starts at just $9.95. Numerous models to choose from. The Mars Medical Consultants will help you find the right solution for you and your loved ones. Things are changing every day, but Mars Medical Supply remains consistent, fully staffed, and still assisting all customers. Stop by today at 333 West Maple Street in New Lenox or browse products and featured items online at marsmedicalsupply.com. That's marsmedicalsupply.com. Mars Medical. Customer care that's out of this world.
Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson here.
And we want to tell you why we and our pets love Avenger's food for dogs and